Hello and welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us here at the Saboteurs on Sabotage the DM. I'm really glad you can join us today on, I'm going to say this dark evening, although it's very bright at the moment. So today we're going to be talking to player, DM, actor, researcher, lecturer. So usually on this show we talk about to players about revealing their characters that kind of like go against the plans of their loving and hardworking DMs to kind of do whatever they feel like and ruining those wonderful plans. But today we're going to be talking to this fantastic person who's going to be talking about with me about kind of DMing some of these things and playing some of these things and approaching these characters. So I'd love you to be able to welcome Mr. Alex Bell. How are you doing?
Hello, hello. I'm good. I'm good. How about you?
Yeah, getting there. Got my coffee.
Well, that's all right then. I've got I've pushed the boat out at Marks and Spencers. They had Coca-Cola, but it's cinnamon Coca-Cola, which I was like, yeah, I know. It's interesting. I wouldn't drink a lot of it, but it was 30p, so I was like, I'll go for it.
We might as well. Well, thank you for joining us. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you.
So yes, this is an interesting one because you are kind of fit into many brackets when it comes to D&D, because you are a DM, as we've kind of heard. You've done a couple of plays that you've played as well, of course,
Yep.
but you also use Dungeons and Dragons for another purpose.
Yes. I'm in one of my jobs. I'm a teacher slash lecturer, and I've been trying to work out what what elements of tabletop gaming could be used to basically make a more inclusive environment. So I can give you context. It came about because I had to teach an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old, and the mother spoke to me and she said the daughter who's 10 wants to be a actress. I was like, great, we'll do stuff with her. I was like, what's the 8-year-old want to do? And she was like, I don't know what he wants to do. We just want to give him something to do. And I spoke to him and he basically just like Dungeons and Dragons. And we had a long discussion where I was trying to work out whether you could teach directing through Dungeons and Dragons, which you can. So I taught an 8-year-old directing through Dungeons and Dragons. And then I was like, oh, maybe there's something in this. Maybe you can take this further on. Maybe you can actually do something with tabletop into a more academic world. Was my thinking. So I find most interesting thing for me for tabletop is that it's just very inclusive and it's a very I like what you said before. For right or wrongly, it's very player led. So you can give a lot of things to your players, which, as I said, can be right or wrong, but that allows things that you as the DM slash teacher hadn't thought of. It allows you just to see it in a different mindset, which I always find fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, especially as the work that I do as well, which is looking at interactive theatre. Like you're getting the players are the audience, and your performers essentially are DMing each individual scene, where they've got a certain amount of information they're supposed to give out, a certain amount of tasks that can be positive or negative. Responses could be positive or negative. They could be multitude of different places that they could be taken to next. But usually there's some sort of like tighter structure around it. That, I mean, in my work, it's much more that there is choice rather than the illusion of choice just limit the amount of choices that there are. Whereas with D&D, you're looking at a entirely open world to kind of create our choices from.
This is it. I remember I had it that the people, I was in a campaign and they were going to fight something and they'd managed to win a house in the last game. So I was like, all right, so you're in the house, and I'm not exaggerating when I say for an hour they checked this house to see if there are any bugs or any way that they could be checked. I was like, I haven't even worked out what this house looks like, let alone if there's anything in here. They were like, what room am I in? I was like, bedroom, I guess. What? It's like you can roll for it, and they kept annoyingly rolling really well.
You're like, oh, details.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, no problems. Yeah, yeah, go for it. You can have that. And then it's always, and then I think they ended up because one of them actually owned the house, and they just ended up robbing him, and someone ended up with a fuck ton of apples for some reason. Like it's just bizarre. This is the way of it. I think bizarrely they ended up using the apples in a fight.
Wow.
And this is the thing because it all is. I in no way would be like, let's have an apple-related boss, but it's the fact that as soon as you give people stuff, they'll find a way of using it, which I always find fascinating.
But it's also this kind of idea of the mundane as well. I was talking to Neil Connolly last week, and he plays Blaze in the Dark.
Yep.
And there's
I'm playing Beam Saber at the moment, so we play Blades in the Dark, and then Beam Saber is basically Blades in the Dark but with robots.
Okay.
That Pacific Rim, which is fun.
So he was talking about how you do the job, and it's like you do the roll to see where you start, and then afterwards you're like, oh, how's you? Yeah, good. Yeah. Should we rob a bank? Yeah, let's go rob a bank. And the mundaneness of something can take such a long time. I think I had a campaign where I literally just said the words, yeah, the room seems okay. And what that meant was every single room had to be checked over. Every door became like a fear door, and it's just sort of, it's funny how you can influence a player just by a small phrasing or something that is just like you just may not even think of anything of it.
Yeah.
And suddenly it becomes a thing.
This is it. Like it's the thing about teaching as well, because there's I think it's a Chekhov thing where you're either head led, heart led, or doing led. And I know if you say like, what do you think? You will be stuck in that room for an hour because they will just be thinking. Whereas if you go, right, okay, what are you going to do? You'll get an instant reaction, but it just depends what you want. A friend of mine's got a very unkind method where he gets a 6-sided dice and he just starts slowly turning it for how long you've got left to make a decision. Which you just see him like lift up this dice and slowly start turning it, which is brutal.
My mate John Cooper has it, which is the 15-minute concept. So he has a clock and it's like danger time, and it's like the closer it gets to the hour, it's danger. So it's sort of like, all right, cool, you want to check the room, great. And we just see him pick up this whole clock, which is about this big, and just like turn 15 minutes in, and you're like, oh god, let's be quick.
There's they do the same thing in Blades of the Dark where you have like clocks and they slowly fill up. And the worst part is when you aren't told what the clock is.
Yeah.
So a clock will appear and you'll be like, don't worry about the clock. Just something will happen when that fills up. And you're like, well, can I stop it? Like,
no.
I don't know, maybe. Depends what you do.
So, but I think there's something interesting in this idea of time. There's another one I saw, which was for every 10 minutes or every action you do in a room, you create like a dice pool of time. So depending on how dangerous the place is, so if somewhere's not that dangerous, you use a D12, and you feel that for every 10 minutes they do, you put a dice into the pot. And once you get 6 dice in the pot, you then pick up all the dice and you roll them. And if you get a 1, that depends how many things are going to happen now, or how many things are aware of you. So if you're in a really dangerous area and you've got a D4, you've got a much higher chance of rolling a 1 than if you've got a 12. That's called great until someone takes a long rest and you're rolling 36 D6.
Oh, that's brutal.
36 D4, and you're like, okay, how many of these? And then the rule is if you get more than, I think it's more than 2 encounters in the night type, you don't get your long rest. And isn't it? But it's also, it makes sense because it's like, yo, you want to rest? You want to rest here in a Lich's lair? Yeah, sure. Yeah, all right. You really want to rest? And it's sort of, it kind of adds that danger element to it. And the
Well, I think
concepts of time is a really interesting one in D&D because everything is connected with time. The spell
yes.
is 10 minutes long. This is an hour long, 8 hours long. But then the actual in-game time is difficult to actually measure other than 6 seconds.
Well, this is it. It's difficult as well to, like, when you're a DM, working out like how much of a dick you want to be.
Yeah.
Like, there's game I mentioned before the stream where called Dead by Night, I think it's called, and the gimmick in that is that you have survival points, and you gain survival points by doing a stereotypical horror movie thing. So if I decide to walk off, you get given you get given a survival point. But the problem is that survival points are also your health, obviously, but I can pay a survival point for something. So if someone is like, can I have a gun? I'm like, you can have a gun. That'll be 2 survival points. And then depending on how much of a dick you want to be, you could be like, not saying that has ammo.
Yeah.
You can have a gun, no problem. But that will not necessarily have any ammo, and you still are going to have to roll to see if that hits. And so it's this constant thing of like trying to work out. Also, like in a room, if there's a teaching technique which kind of works in the way of D&D, but in a slightly different way, where it's safe zone. I think it's push zone, and then it's like panic zone. And I think D&D works in the same way that you're in safe zone, and then you can push people, but then it just gets into the place where people get bored, and they're like, "No, I don't. I'm not feeling this anymore." So it's this constant battle of being like, right, how much do I push them before? It's like if you send wave after wave of monsters, people will be like, "I'm just bored of these monsters.
Yeah.
Give me something else." Or if you're just doing loads of talking, they'll be like, "I'm bored of talking. Can we just like fight something?" So it's a constant battle of trying to work out and read the room, which is particularly difficult on Zoom.
Yeah, because we had a particular one which was with doing mole rats actually. And so season one was really about this imaginary world, imaginary kind of thought process, and like having kids imagining themselves to have these heroic adventures. And the guys were like, you know what, the stakes aren't there for us. So we were like, all right, let's go and do like 10 years later in the second season, and we went for like commoner stats. And I then became really scared of doing battles because it was like you're not level 1, you're -4 levels. And like if I throw a battle in there, you're gonna die. So dice rolls started like disappearing, and I was like, "Oh, this is great! This is great!" And then I think we got to a couple of weeks ago before Christmas, and the guys were like, "We really miss dice rolls, like because it adds a set. Not only does it add a sense of danger, but it helps us improvise because we know the result
This
before
is
we
it.
start. You know,
But a friend of mine, he was, because I'm always like, I don't want to kill a player, and he was like, you just need to pull the band-aid off, mate. Just kill a couple of players, just get it done. I was like, but it's so hard, especially when you're a player, because and that was one of the first things that got me into D&D as a concept in terms of acting, because so often when I'm teaching acting, someone will play a part, and they'll be like, I just hate this part. Like, I just don't like them. I don't connect to them. Whereas if I even hurt a character's player, they're like, why are you being such a dick? Why have you hurt them? And it's like, but this is like, why do you care about this character? But it's because people have really invested time into him. Like, you really put a bit of yourself into it because it's your version of an orc or a sorcerer, etc. And
yeah, let's talk about death. Actually, yeah, let's do that.
one of them, we'll
One
talk
of
about it.
those.
Why not?
Okay, so death, right? So tell me, because obviously there is a sensitivity
Yeah.
to death. Not only is it a kind of okay, you've died, you've done your death saving throws, and you failed it. So what is kind of your approach to, I suppose, guiding that spirit, as it were,
So
through into the ultimate demise?
so in terms of some games, like there's some tabletop games where I'm just like, I'm going to be honest, you're going to be dead by the end of this. So like Dead by Night, I give people 2 characters because they are just cannon fodder. Like I I remember doing it with 8 characters, and I think we had 2 left by the end. And that was after they'd made up a new character. Like it was a whitewash. But I think if all I can do is just be like, especially because I'll either be very nice if I'm in person, I'll try and just go, if they roll like the orc rolls a 20, I'm like, oh, they got a 6, oh, awful, well, blast. But on roll 20, you can't do that. So I'm just like, if it happens, man, I can't do anything. What I normally say is, if your character dies, we can find a way of bringing them back if you wish, but it will take a while. Or roll another character, or what I sometimes do if it just looks like death, I'm like, you know what? Let's give him a really good heroic end. What do you want to do? So if they're fighting like a Cyclops, I'm like, do you want to get the finishing blow? Do you want to Matthew McConaughey Rain of Fire it, jumping into the dragon? Do you want to like have this final thing so you'll die, but you'll have an amazing end? And normally people are like, you know what? I'm gutted to lose the character, but yeah, I want him to go out. Especially if you say, I don't know if you do this. Whenever someone kills someone, I always say, okay, how do you want to do this?
Yeah, it's the same.
Yeah, and then so with that, I'm like, right, you're gonna die. How do you want to do this? Because then once again, you've got the agency of being like, I'm gonna die, but they're gonna die on my terms. This is how they're dying. They're gonna die. They will die how I want them to. They will have a heroic end.
That's cool. That's really nice. Like, could you give me an example of one that's kind of happened like that?
I'm trying to think. I think there was one. Yeah, I can remember one. There was a guy who I created. Like it was like the raid where you basically had to work your way up a tower. And at the top there were like 2 robots. And they managed. I just stupid. What's it called? DM thing. Shouldn't have put into like one was nightmare fuel and wiped out 3 of the people. They didn't get killed, but they were on like last legs. And one guy just took he took a bullet essentially, and then rolled a 1 in death saving throws. And I was like, fuck. So I was like, I was like, we might be able to save you, but this is looking bleak, mate. He was like, right, what I want to do, I want to push everyone out, lock the door, and then I want to run in and just do like an explosive kamikaze, because he was an artificer as well, which was great, by the way, just to fucking lose that character. But he was like, I want to get all of my explosives and just blow it up. So that he shut the door, and then they just heard an explosion, and then came back to body parts and robots everywhere.
Wow, that's cool.
But it was cool in the sense of he was like, they'd beaten 1 robot. We'd already potentially were going to lose 3 people, and he was like, no, I'm going to save my friends in this final hurrah. So I was like, that's cool. So that's a good way of ending your character.
Because I'm the complete opposite. Like for me, mundane death is my favorite. So I really enjoy the moments where somebody goes down and the rest of the characters don't know, and they carry on the battle. And then they get to the end, because I'm a big fan of the journey to the city of the dead, the kind of the death god sort of stood there judging you and moving you on, or being claimed by your god and things like this. And I really enjoy that moment of, fuck, you realise that they're not getting up.
This is it. I think what one of the I'm such a rubbish fan with you guys, because I always watch for a bit and then I've got it like on. But what's really nice from what I've seen is that it goes from from what I've watched of your things, it goes from just like, oh, we're in high fantasy having fun, to actual genuine moments of pathos, of being like, oh no, this is sad that we're genuinely losing someone, or they have lost a member of their family. Like these are the real moments. There's a practitioner called Susan Batson who says about public persona and private persona. So public persona is what you give out, and the private persona is what you don't see. And with what I've seen with a couple of your campaigns, which is really nice, is that you see the private persona of a character, which is bizarre, and it's like an orc or stupid orc or a rogue, but you see like another side to them. You see like they become 3-dimensional, which is really interesting because all we're doing is basically playing Skyrim with dice, but you get these like actual moments where there is a connection between the characters. There's a connection between what's happening, which is really interesting. And this is why I always find it interesting in terms of Laurence Olivier. I don't know if this is true, but apparently he would work out how his character would die. And Michael Billington said that the most interesting thing Laurence Olivier did was that the way they died showed everything you needed to know about their character. That showed everything you wanted to know. So when he played Coriolanus, I think, he would dive, mad lad, off a scaffolding and be caught by stagehands, and he dived head first. And if they dropped him, we'd obviously have lost Laurence Olivier. But in terms of the character, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
Being like, I'm going to have one final hurrah jump off. Whereas there's some characters who, I feel like there are definitely some characters that if I played, I just want to have a quiet. I'm playing a character at the moment in Beam Saber, and I'm basically just a soldier. But my main thing is that they always say we're a group of psychopaths apart from Leo, who's my character. And I know that if my character had to die, I'd definitely be like, it'd be the same thing, but it'd be I'd want to try and help someone else. I'd be like, look, it's too late for me, guys. Go on. But this
leave
is
me.
leave me. Go on without me. Like, but it's fascinating just when you think of all you've been given is a load of numbers, and that's about it. But then like a whole world can be built.
Yeah, I mean, like we were doing Tomb of Annihilation with a friend of mine, Tom, and what he did is to change the spoilers here, change the death plague, I think it was called.
One of them.
Death plague, yeah. So that it meant that no souls were going to the underworld at all. And that's the kind of idea of it. Instead of it being like you're kind of unable to die, it was just like no souls are going. So what happened at the epilogue, he made this kind of big epilogue where we sat around and he did 45 minutes of storytelling of every single character that we had interacted with, or like that kid that we gave a gold coin to and what they went off and did. But having all of the characters that died in a line in front of the kind of the Lord of Death, and him going, and you going here, and you're going here, and you're going here, And it was just this beautiful moment of Lachlan, who's one of the characters my friend Stuart played, and all he ever wanted to do was to be with his dead wife, who he was a furbolg, but he had become a cleric of the Raven Queen. So she claimed him and stopped him from being able to be with his wife in the end of it. So he continued, and it was like we were all in tears, sat at the table. And it's a similar thing with Tunk. I mean, Tunk died twice, really. He died once as an imaginary character, the son of the Citadel, and then he died for real. And seeing this moment of where the players had forgotten something that had happened in season 1, where Dan's character had sold all of their souls to Asmodeus to keep them safe for the time being. And so when Tunk died, he was going towards his family, and then trips and falls through the earth and lands in the Nine Hells. And it's like this wonderful beautiful character that should have the best life, like afterlife, is
Yep.
now trapped in the Nine Hells.
This is it. They've it's Martin Scorsese said, if you want to the worst thing you can do is you make a character likable and then give them a goal that they can't achieve. He's like, the worst thing you can do, because it just is, if you want people to like a character, give them a likable quality and make it that they can't achieve their goal and people be gutted. Because this is it, go back into the world of acting, like an objective works if you actively want to do that objective, and like a tragedy is when you just can't achieve it, and it's gutting when you can't, and especially when you, in the world of D&D, when you're like, if you've got the plan and it's all correct and you know it's going to work and then you roll wrong, it's just devastating. It's devastating, because it's, especially if you're taking it seriously and you're like, I did it right. I was doing it right this time. I was doing the right things. I wasn't messing around. I knew what I was going to do. I knew this would work. And then dice roll, like real life, just gets in the way, just screws you up.
It's funny because no matter how much you play with the clowning idea, because we're very much playing on the clowning idea of one is a fail, which is an opportunity. It doesn't matter how much you have that in your head at that time, at that exact moment where you really want it to succeed and it doesn't, it is destroying.
Yeah.
It completely destroys you.
I had a friend of mine, I was so gutted for him. He got he was an archer, and he was like, right, he's going to fire a load of arrows at this boss. And I was like, you realize your mates are there, and he's like, it's okay, I'll take the risk. I was like, okay, rolled it, and he missed every single person. Not a single person was hit. He was like, so what? I've lost every arrow. I was like, I'm really sorry, mate. It's just where the dice have gone. Like, just happened. It's like the thing they say where it's like, how can you be so proficient but then still fail? And it's like, well, you know, when you occasionally bite your tongue, it's that. It's
That's
just
such a great way of putting it.
just like that. We know how to eat, but then just occasionally you bite your tongue. You're like, oh, fuck.
So in terms of like, because you play lots and lots of different RPGs.
Yeah.
So firstly, what's your favorite?
I go up and down. I'm at the moment, I'm quite enjoying this guy called Grant Howitt, who does very simple RPGs, which I quite like. And there's also a shout out to a friend of mine called Richard Malop. What is his last name? Marlop. And he did a good game for if I ever want to introduce people to tabletop, is called Exquisite Goth Detectives, where you are exquisite goth detectives and you have to solve a murder mystery. Because I'm clown based as a teacher, so I'm always like, well, let's just have a bit of a laugh and run about. But I mean, the first thing I was introduced to was D&D, so I'm always going to have a soft spot for D&D, just because that was the one that, yeah, that was how I was introduced to the tabletop medium. So it's always going to be, that's the main one that always I can't end up coming back to. I'll go up and down with different things, but that's always the one which I'm like, there's just so much to it. Like, there's so many things, because I like a good simple RPG, but they're only good for like a session or two, just because of the thing. Whereas D&D, you can, for me, it just seems like the simplest system. But how about you? Have you got any, or are you just all D&D at the moment?
Well, I'm a big D&D-er, obviously. I'm actually a really big fan of Star Trek Adventures.
Oh, nice. I've never played it.
I love it.
Okay.
I think it's really great if you know the world.
Yeah.
You know, so we had a party that had an old Constitution class, but in the world of like Picard, and it was like, yeah, this is our rust bucket, but we love our rust bucket. But the engineer we had on it had never watched Star Trek, so what they were doing was just using the best science babble I've ever seen. Um, the only problem I find with it is that the ship battles are really difficult to manage.
This is it.
It's so difficult to manage because you've got everyone does something, and then it's like and the shots, but it's so hard to manage it because you're also doing the same for the enemy ship, but you are. So
Right.
like it's a bit complicated, but the mystery aspect of it is fantastic. So they're always mysteries. They're always like classic sort of Star Trek sort of tropes, as it were.
What I think this is like the most interesting thing about tabletop is that, like, even have you ever played Fiasco?
Yeah, I've had a little bit of Fiasco.
Fiasco is great because
So
you can
good.
just create a whole film instantly. But like, there's so many. Like, tabletop has just got so many options of stuff. So like, just off the top of my head, this is just Grant Howitt. There's a game called there's a game called, oh, what's it called? It's a one where you are, it's the same kind of thing as Exquisite Goth Detectives, but you're pirates. And one of the things is how good's your hat. Um, and then there's Honey Heist, where you're
Love Honey Heist.
Honey Heist.
Big fan of Honey Heist.
A friend of mine said that the best thing to do with Honey Heist is because I think it's the 2017 Honey Fair or something that you're going for, and she said it gets funnier every year if you leave it as 2017. So she was like, leave it as 2017. And then I did another game the other day, which was called Adventure Skeletons. And the gimmick of that was that you would attack because they're skeletons. If you got hit, you'd lose a body part.
Good.
So you were trying to like deal with problems, then like your head would get knocked off, and you'd be like, well, "What do I do now?" And be like, "No, you can still fight. You just don't have a head." Like, oh, okay,
Great.
well, I'll keep fighting then. And I think that's the nice thing that you can just cater to. When I first introduced EV, who's on your group, and the other people, they didn't. This is the problem with doing things when you're dealing with a clown. I said to them, try and be a good DM. What do you want in your campaign? Because I was doing one shot, and they didn't give me anything. The only thing someone said was yogurt. So I was like, all right. So all the bosses were yogurt related monsters. They were like, "Oh, I didn't think you were serious." I was like, "No, this is the thing of D&D. We can add anything, but you only gave me yogurt,
Okay.
so I can't work with anything else." So I was like, "All right, well, it's a one shot about yogurt then, I guess."
So good. I mean, talk about yogurt as well. Talking into Star Trek, I think the doctors we had in ours was constantly getting yogurt, but he was from Yorkshire. So he was like, I just want some yogurt. It was just so good. But Honey Heist is fabulous. I love one page RPGs. Like they're absolutely
Yeah,
brilliant. And there's usually like one aspect that is changeable, like you said with losing body parts, or with Honey
yeah,
Heist, it's bear or criminal, isn't it? Of like
yeah,
sort of the scale. But we played with Rob and Dan and a couple of the other guys on a different game of play, which was we did Honey Heist 1922, and we did it in Paris. So it was like this French, but it was all this kind of crime ring around other famous bears. So you had like Yogi Bear was the murderous butcher who kind
Mhm.
of sells other bears in the butcher's shop and things like this. But they actually didn't get to do the heist at all. In fact, it got so late, they were just like, okay, cool, you touch it, it blows up. Right, you failed. But it was like having a bear driver who usually drives at Le Mans was just brilliant. And the other thing on that one is choosing your hat. So you have to choose a
Yeah,
hat and the type of
yeah,
bear you had. But we picked that up. I think I told the guys about it 5 minutes before we started. We rolled up characters in about 3.5 minutes, and then we did 4 hours of playing.
yeah,
And I think it'd be great if I'm going to pop these onto the chat so everybody can see all of these different games. So like in terms of like one page RPGs, what was one that you found which is a little unique gem that you've just gone, oh, I don't think anyone's seen this one.
So I think once again I'll give a shout out for Exquisite Goth Detectives, which is technically 2 pages, but only 1 page for the players. Because especially with that, um, you roll up who did it, why they did it, and where it is, which is interesting. So far I've done it I think 3 times, touch wood, and every time they've been able to solve the crime. So it is doable, but it is difficult. Anything by Grant Howart's good, because obviously he did Adventure Skeletons, the space one, Beautiful Space Pirates. There we are, Beautiful Space Pirates.
That's a great
And
name.
Beautiful Space Pirates, and there's one called Goat Crashers, because I've got a friend who loves goats. So I was like, mate, this is for you. And the goal is that you have to, as goats, you have to just try and crash a party. And you roll up what they do, and one of the skills, because you have different skills and you're different types of goat. So one of them's a fainting goat, and you think, why would fainting be useful? And then when you do it, you're like, fainting is the most useful skill ever. Like, so helpful, just random stuff. I'm trying to think. There was one other one which was quite good, which I've completely forgotten the name of. I think this is the really nice thing. Like, it literally, if you almost anything that you want to find, there's probably been a tabletop version of it.
It's similar to wrestlers. It's the same sort of idea. If you have a concept, there's a wrestler that does it.
This is it. There'll always be something. If you're, I found a version of Battle Royale. If you want to play Battle Royale, the old Japanese horror, got that. Or by the same token, there was one. What did I find the other day? Because I do a club, and I made the rookie mistake with myself to try and do a different game every time I DM. And I found one the other day, which I can't remember the name of it, but everyone was a nun, and you just had to try and do nun shit. And like with that, I had a whole thing where they were going to go to a bank, and they went, "We don't want to do that," so they just drove off, and then we ended up fighting Cthulhu.
Nice.
Like, all right, okie dokie.
Have you ever played a Suffer Ninja? Is that called Suffer Ninja? Where you're suffragettes, but you're the militant ninja wing.
That sounds amazing.
It is brilliant. Like one of the adventures is sort of you have to protect Emily Pankhurst against the police. So it's like you put things like barbed wire inside of the roses on the front, and like you're just trying to stop the police from getting to it so she can finish the speech. And it's just like such a great concept and so much fun playing it.
This is it. There's all like, and this is when you read about it on paper, you're like, that would be fun. And then since you start it, you're like, no, actually, this is good. I'm having fun now.
Yeah. There's also something a lot which are not dice based. So I think we were talking earlier about 10 Candles is a brilliant game. What's the game with the Jenga? Dread? Is it Dread?
Yep, Dread. Dread. And there's another one which I've forgotten the name of, which is like Dread, but you're exactly the same concept, but you're trying to do a romance. So it's seeing a romance, and then as soon as the Jenga tower falls, that's where the relationship ends. So it's either gone amazingly or it just collapses in one go.
There was one that I was playing which was called Innocence, and essentially you play as children, and you've got like innocent points and like bravery points, but they're sweets, so you have to buy like jelly sweets for them. So you eat them as you spend them. And the whole idea is the balance between being old enough to understand that the darkness is just the darkness, and young enough to be able to imagine anything and make it real. So you can go, I want a gun. And you go, cool, you pick up a banana and it turns into a gun. But what's fantastic about it is once you've spent your points and the adventure finishes, you then do what the adults believe that you've done. So, like, if you may have jumped out of the window thinking that you could fly, and you land and you hurt and you break a leg or something on the floor, then the even though you know you've been fighting monsters and trying to escape and trying to get your little brother to safety, the parents will then ground you for for like jumping out the window and playing. So you have this kind of whole thing, and then they try to explain what it is that you've seen, and you know that it's not that. But I just love this idea of non-dice based. It's just these little jellies, and you just eat them away, of like destroying your innocence as you're going. It's like, it's a really lovely idea.
I haven't played it, but there was a game which would be useful for like I can't remember what it's called, but there was one where no dice, it's just bits of paper, and it's essentially like a way of doing impro where you have two people and you give out the paper, and one says bitten and the other one says not bitten, and you don't know, because either no one could be bitten or both of them could be bitten, and then there's a gun on the table, and at any time anyone can reach for the gun and shoot, or they can end it. And so it's just a constant battle of just
That's brilliant.
because it's what's fun is that I said this to another friend, and he's like, well, why wouldn't they just shoot them? I was like, because there's the empathy side, man. There's like the actual thing of what might happen if you're in that situation. But this is it, because you can, like, once you, I think, like, it's a slightly odd analogy, but like, have you seen Avenue Q?
Mm-hmm.
So with Avenue Q, the first half of Avenue Q, you're going, it's a puppet, and this guy, okay, I'm seeing it, and then the second half, you just see the puppet. You just see the puppet. You don't acknowledge that there are people. You just see the puppet, and it's kind of the same for me with tabletop. The first bit of tabletop, when you first start, you go, right, what are the rules? Okay, that's there, and then by the end of it, you're like, no, because I need to do that dice roll there. Can I wait? Have I got that item? Can I use it? But it's just that starting point to try and get into it, to try and work it out, which is interesting.
Yeah, man. And so, like, let's just pop back to D&D for a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because we kind of got in a really wonderful long circle. So kind of a couple of things, actually. I thought this might be a great opportunity to talk about NPCs.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're talking about character creation, and we have to create characters all the time, usually on the fly, because it's, hey, his name is Monzo. That's my Monzo cards in front of me. So it's sort of like we have to kind of usually create something very, very quickly, or we have these kind of hugely big planned NPCs. Sort of, what's your approach to kind of building an NPC?
So with an NPC, I normally I'll I'll try and plan out everyone in a, like, if it's a pub, I'll try and plan out that anyone they can meet, and then I'll normally give them a basic thing. I normally will give it so that they have one quality about them. So if I for ages, I did it if they were attacked by birds. All birds would sound like Alan Rickman. So they'd just be attacked by Alan Rickman birds. And I think just giving like a very clear thing of being like, right, this is the basics of what this character is. We can potentially, because my logic is always that they're probably going to end up getting killed, because that's what happens with players. So I can't invest too much in a character because they're going to get killed the moment that a certain player comes in. But I think, yeah, having just something about them that gives them, because you can then, like, I remember having a bar lady, and then got talking because they were a dwarf and they were talking to another dwarf, and then it just turned out that they knew the dwarf, that they were good friends, gone to school, and then they revealed like some personal information, and like I had a bit of that, but not a lot, so I just knew that she worked behind a bar.
Mm-hmm.
That was as far as my knowledge. went and that they were a dwarf. But it's trying to. It's the thing they say about hold on tightly, let go lightly. So I've just got a basic structure, and like this is what I think they are, and then it's just adding the extra things to them.
I mean, I usually try and find like one interesting thing, like I don't know, they lisp, they have absolutely no hair but covered in tattoos, something small. Like I have a trope which is there's always a very posh, very large lady that's in charge of a shop or a pub or an inn or a bathhouse, and they've always got this tiny little dog called Henry. The Henry hates every single character apart from one. There will always be one that it absolutely adores, which is usually the chaotic evil character or somebody that's like has trouble being friends with anybody else. But that dog allows that woman to then become a really important central figure within the party. And I'm same as you. It's like this. I have it very, very loose. Excuse me, extremely loose unless they start getting interested.
Yeah.
And then they start, okay, now I need to start building. I think I did something slightly different with more rats because there's the Watchers gang. I was like, right, I'm actually going to build this entire gang structure. And that was actually quite important because I suddenly realized I was like, actually, these guys are going to end up killing all of these people. So all of these characters need to have stat blocks. Every single one needs to have something.
Yeah.
And then it became even worse when Rob then chose a character to be a member of one of the gangs. I was like, fuck, you need to know everyone's name now. You know, so that became slightly different.
Feel free to steal. One of the easiest things I ever found to make a pub of people was I just stole Billy Joel's Piano Man and just picked the people from Piano Man, just put them in there. It was like the easiest way. I just had a load of people from Piano Man.
That is fucking brilliant. I'm writing that down.
That was great. Just had that, and I had one guy in the corner who was selling things, and they could roll a d20 and then they get something random. And I, after the thing had finished, I showed them with it, and they said their favorite item, which I think was if you got an 8, was it looks like an apple, it tastes like an apple, but it's definitely not an apple. So it's just a pointless apple that they have, but it's not an apple.
I'm sort of seeing a pattern with you and apples.
I don't know why. I don't know why they come up. Well, there's so many random things that I'm like, I don't want this. Why have you guys added it in? Like I had same thing again where I started a D&D game and someone, so in terms of making NPCs, the guy was like, he'd drawn his character, which was like amazing, and he's like, oh, he's got a pig and he flies. I was like, does he? Does he have a pig that flies? Does he have a pig that flies? But obviously, I had to have a pig that flies. So I had to stat a pig, then I had to work out how it flied. Unfortunately, it got kidnapped within about 4 minutes of the game starting. But this is it. Like it's trying to, like, if someone wants it, like in theory, I can add it in. It's just trying to. Yeah, fine. I think I'm the same as you, trying to find something that is interesting about the character, something small at least.
I think I really love that. I was also looking at opportunities because if you think about like, oh, I got a pig that flies, and you went, does it?
Yeah.
Does he really think the pig can fly? And actually, the whole way through, he's just got a pair of wings taped to a pig that he's literally like, oh, he can fly. If I was like, you sure he can fly?
Well, this is it, because the thing is that what's the worst thing is that, like, I have had, it might be just how I structure sessions, but I've had, I think 3 times now, had a bigger character like a Goliath pick up one of the smaller characters and throw them at an enemy.
Yep,
and
yeet it.
I yeet it, always about yeeting. And so I'm like, I think it's so difficult because anything you add to the world, it's what we said earlier, the players will just go with it. They'll just find a way of going with it. I remember reading something online where a guy had created a werewolf where it was the DM, and he said it's going to be a werewolf. They're all going to be level 1, and we were going to do it was going to be a constant menace, so just follow them about, and then as they go up, they could then fight it. First session, they were like, right, we're going to attack it now, and he was like, all right, okay, great. And one character was a druid, and they had a little stone that could like make plants, and he was like, right, I want to punch the werewolf in the mouth, like I want to put my fist in its mouth. And he was like, are you sure? He's like, yeah, I want to do that. He's like, okay. Put the fist in the mouth. He's like, well, your arm has obviously been bitten off. And he was like, okay, cool. It was holding the stone. I want the stone to grow. Grew. Plant instantly killed the werewolf. And he was like, great. Well, there's that character gone in one foul swoop. And now I've got an armless druid.
Who's now probably a werewolf.
Yeah, this is it. So, but this is the thing, because I always find it really fascinating just seeing what people will do, because you can always give it's the difference I'm trying to work out between teaching and DMing, is that DMing for me is more facilitating. I'm just facilitating what's happening, rather than just going, here's what we're doing, now do it. It's more, right, I've got a structure, but what you do is what you do, which is fun.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting thing about DM as facilitator. Because I kind of do a little mixture of that sometimes, where I'll go, I know that usually player characters are, sacred to them, and the thought process is always sticks with the player. Sometimes I'll go, but you feel this. Just to kind of push it along. I think I had one with Gabby with Oshi, and it was like, Tunka's dying, and you're on your own, and this character, you see that, and you lie there and you look at them and you realize that you've never told them something. You've never told them how you actually feel. And it's like, me and Gabby never spoke about that, but now it's a thing. And it drives this scene forward, but it's not like you're railroading something towards something. You're suggesting, facilitating that kind of gesture of like, hey, this could happen.
I think this is it. Like I always get made fun of, because whenever I'm teaching, I always say I invite you. It's my constant buzzword. I invite you, but it's like it is that. It is literally, if they went, actually no, I don't want to, I'd go, okay, no props. It was just an invitation. It's just a choice. It's fascinating seeing what people will do. Just especially when you like give the situation. There's a thing in Blades in the Dark which is quite fun, where they say okay, it's called a devil's bargain. So you go to the DM and go, right, I'm not going to get out of this, what can you offer me? And they'll go, we can offer you this, but and I always find the thing of for anyone who hasn't played Blades in the Dark, I think it works. 6 is a great success. 5 is success with a consequence. 3 is a failure, I think, and then I think a 1 is failure with a consequence, or something like that. And it's the consequences bits. They're always quite interesting, because that's when you really start. Like I remember a character when I was playing it, and it's the same thing where I was like, I was just playing the character. I was like, right, well, I want to be like Batman. I was a fighter. I was like, I want to Batman everyone. And he said, the people who were still alive just went and murdered one of our friends. I was like, what? I was killing them. He's like, yeah, but you were doing it stealthily. No one knew you were there. So they saw them and just attacked them. And I was like, oh, fuck, yeah, because I specifically asked to be like Batman, who obviously just wanted to be silent. But that's the difficulty. The good and bad thing of being a DM is just trying to think on the fly when something happens, being like, okay, I can work with this. Just, okay, you've done that, so the repercussion of that will be, and then trying to link it. There's a thing in terms, I go to your better judgment, but there's obviously the thing of devising, where you don't try and create something complex. You try and create something simple, but it's lots of simple things that make something complex. And if you try and make something complex, it becomes complicated. And especially in terms of tabletop, if it's complicated, people don't play.
Yeah.
They just will not play because they don't understand, and they're like, I don't get this, and then they're not on board. So just trying to find like the simple way of letting people go in and just letting them do things, just letting them play, do stuff.
So that's a really good kind of almost closer to this of like, as a DM, try and keep it as simple. But like for you, what would be nice is to hear a little bit of an advice to other DMs out there, and also other players who are playing with their DMs. It might be quite nice if we make this two-part question. So a piece of advice for DMs, and then a piece of advice for players with their DMs, I think would be quite nice.
So in terms of being a DM, you can always just go to a player and go, do you want to describe it? It depends. You make a choice of, it's the same with directing. Make a choice. Are you going to be open, or are you going to give like, this is the story? Make a choice of one of them, because what's difficult is when players are like, well, I want to do this, and then a DM goes, no, you can't. Then the players go, well, fuck it then. Unless you've already gone, look, this is fairly railroaded. It's like if you get a D&D book and like, I'm really sorry, if you go too far off, I'm going to have to pull you back. But I think what can happen when you like first start, I think I think of being, you're creating a world together. It's a collaborative thing. I think is I guess for both. It's just being collaborative. It's trying to create the world. And in terms of for both DMs and players, there's a thing that there's a book with Sam Russell Beale and not Sam Remy, Sam Mendes, and he says about there's a different language with different people, not necessarily like language as in like French or English. It's like just how you communicate. And if I am trying to direct someone and I say do it more like a flute, for some players and actors that will mean nothing. It will mean absolutely nothing. For others, they'll go, got it. And I think when you're a player, what you either have to just try and work out what is your language with that DM, or just go, you're a great DM, you don't work for me, which is okay. But it's trying to just work out a language between the players and the DMs, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense.
I think it makes perfect sense, but you're speaking my language, so that really helps. Well, I'm just going to wrap up here and say it's been absolutely brilliant talking to you, Alex. That was very much different to what we usually have, which I really enjoyed. And again, much more chaotic. I think this is because I've been very chaotic as well today. But I can't help but thank you so much. Is there anything that you want us to kind of keep an eye out for that you're doing publicly at the moment?
Trying to think. So the only I have a website which is, can I remember it? I think it's www.alexbellteacher.co.uk. If people are needing lecturing or teaching, and I do gaming on a Twitch channel called Carter's _ Crusaders. But that's the main things at the moment. It's just in this current Zoom world that we live in, just trying to be. I'll promise not to ramble, but I think one of the I'm doing an intro to acting course, and first thing I said was, why is everyone doing this course? And someone said, I just want to do something creative. And I think that's the most important thing at the moment, is just trying to stay creative and trying to just do things. I think it's
nice. Yeah, I think that's a beautiful way of finishing. Just be creative. Well, I'll make sure that we can get a link through to Carter to go check that out. So are you playing in that, or are you DMing in that?
I'm doing it. It's literally a video game, so completely different world entirely.
Okay.
Completely different.
Really, really nice. Well, we'll make sure we kind of pop that together, and I'll definitely come over and follow you for sure.
Oh, mate.
But yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much, Alex. It's been brilliant.
Thank you.
I just
Thank
want to
you.
say to everybody at home, we're going to be continue with more rats on Monday. We are going to be releasing a couple of new videos as well this week. So looking at character creation. So we're looking at our first level characters. So we'll be releasing them this week. We've also kind of doing bits and pieces. So if you want to continue following us, continue subscribing to us, or donating to us, you know where the buttons are. So I'll see you guys next week, and we'll see what happens. Thank you very much.